Hey, we got things to give out. Some pretty cool things. So before we start, do that for people. Oh yeah, right. That doesn't work. Bear with me. I think I'm going to continue making that mistake. Where are we? Thank you. Thank you. Wait a minute. A minute. Thank you. And hey, we gotta do this first before we start. Monthly times incoming. Thank you. Next. Thank you. And finally, because the last person on this list decided to unfollow. This person, however, is pretty cool. Thank you. Everybody gets their time in the spotlight. To the point that I'll actually do this for you. Just so it's a scratch. How is everyone today? I realised that my Discord ping didn't work, which is unfortunate. Hey ho. There's no pushing back from that. It'll be fine. It's all about reliance. Being yourself, being. That's the main thing. It's not about stopping, not about changing yourself. Be you. Be true. Right? In me is a good heart. Apparently a broken water bottle. Ah, that would explain things. Nice. Let's try this again, shall we? Now, with any hopes, let's fix that. I hope this worked. If it hasn't, then I can always fix it. That's something to do later. Right? There's always time. There's always time. You never stop. You never let go. Do your best. So, my good friend Pretzel, you've been very good to us. Now we have to say goodbye for a moment. And only a short one. We'll see you again tomorrow. Our goodbye. We love you. Silence. We'll see you tomorrow. With that, let's start a wonderful day in court. Ooh, fancy. Yeah. Hey, we're playing this one, not the other. Alright, so number 4. I have a feeling that this one's going to be like kind of introduction to something more moderate. And case 5 is going to be the bigger one. It's kind of weird, but we're on case 4. And we haven't actually had... I had a proper trial, but the ending wasn't great. I'm gonna go from here. Well, never expected this. Who'd have thought we'd be back here so soon? We are only on a study tour of Great Britain. The intention of learning the country's legal practices. In order to research the latest court procedures here, you need as much court experience as possible. Well, yeah, I suppose that's true. But for the person in the dock, it may well be his or her one and only time in court. It could be life-changing. In which case, treating it as a research may seem a little crass. Oh, when you put it like that, you're quite right.
Good morning!
Ah, Mr. Natsume. Good morning. Oh dear, you alright? Your eyes are terribly bloodshot.
The early bird catches the worm, as they say in here, Britain.
Yeah, I've heard that expression.
But I really don't want to catch the worm. Oh, I tried desperately not to wake up early. But I was so worried I can't catch a wink. And now, I'm absolutely exhausted as a result.
Do all literary people take things so literally? Thank you for putting your faith in us today, Mr. Natsume.
I wish I had 9 lives. My whole future hangs in the balance. I'm too terrified to tremble.
Really? Because I can feel the tremors in the floor.
I can't do this. I can't take it. Hello comes student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire.
Yes.
I caught a glimpse of the public art gallery as I walked by the courtroom. It looked like the opening night of the opera. So many people. I had no idea my case was such a notorious affair here in London.
Oh. Neither did I. Do you know why that might be, Mrs.? I'm sorry, Mr. Naruhodo, but I have no idea. So that all-knowing look on your face is just a coincidence then, isn't it?
Don't hide the truth from me. It's because of the Reaper, isn't it?
Lord Van Zykes. Is that right, Miss Suzuto? I purchased as many different newspapers as I could this morning, and yes, Lord Van Zykes is on the front page of every one. I knew it. Sometimes, after the prosecutor was dubbed the Reaper of the Bailey, he stopped appearing in court, it seems. It's been several years now, in fact, until the day before yesterday. Yeah, Inspector Gregson told us something similar, didn't he? While 2 days ago, Mark, Lord Van Zykes returned to the courtroom after a very long hiatus. Trial of Magnus McGill. Ugh, what a harrowing experience that was. I believe that appearance made even greater waves here in the capital than today's. But we wouldn't have realised, of course, having only just arrived in the country. Why is the Reaper back on the Bailey so soon? Why is the Reaper back on the Bailey so soon for what appears to be a mundane murder? That's the question the papers are asking, and they are all speculating various.
Mundane! Mundane! It's the most significant saga of the century to some of us.
Oh dear. I mean, no offense, Mr. Natsume, but that's how the papers are describing it.
Well, lest we forget the fact that it could spark an international incident. Obviously, the reappearance of this infamous prosecutor has caught people's attention. But there's another blatant similarity with the trial of 2 days ago.
Yes, I agree.
Now comes student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. You.
Me? Oh, I suppose that's true.
of times. It is you who stands against this legendary prosecutor. It can only mean that you're friends with the Reaper.
Please, I don't rub shoulders with Deathbringers. I'm afraid that there's really only one other explanation. It can only be another example of Mr. Naruhodo, your uncommon bad luck. Thanks for that.
My luck. Why must I be represented by a man with such a frail fortune?
Rafa the Potato, thank you for following. How are you today?
By a least lucky lawyer alive.
Hi. Let's not forget that it was you, Mr. Natsume, who asked me to represent you. Yes, it's true that I'm just a student. New to London, with little in the way of experience, or skills, or luck. But I promise you this. I will fight your corner until the bitter end, and I will believe in you, Mr. Natsume. I'm doing well, thank you. Much better than Sunday. We always work past it. Always have positive outlook.
Oh, benevolent low-com student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire.
You're not alone here with us, Mr. Natsume. Whatever happens, we'll always be on your side.
Oh, benevolent non-low-crumb assistant Miss Mikotaba Esquires. I am in your debt forever.
I wish they'd stop doing that.
Mr. Natsume, counsel for the defense. Court session is about to begin. Time to make your way to the courtroom at once.
What's this game about? It's a visual novel game about defending clients in court. With, 2 pieces of evidence. Apparently. He's basically been framed for attempted murder. And we have to prove that he hasn't done it. But it's a very eccentric bunch of characters.
Yes!
We're trying to work our way through them, but we're taking it slow. This is it. My second appearance in a British courtroom. And my second trial against the Reaper. I hope you're watching over me, Kazuma. Because this time, I won't let my faith waver. I believe in my client. I'll believe in my client to the last. Just like you believed in me. I believe I can do this now. I'm ready for this fight. Oh, here it comes. This is where I have to come up with more voices. I'll be going bye-bye. Have a nice stream. No problem, Rafa. Thanks for dropping by, even only a little while. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I now call upon the counsel for the prosecution and the defense to declare their willingness to the proceedings. The prosecution is fully.
The defense is ready. my lord.
The Nipponese are a truly fascinating breed.
Sorry, what?
Lord Strongheart has told me all about you. You are a student who arrived in London but 2 days ago. A mere amateur.
You have a point?
Being a compatriot, you feel compelled to try and help the accused. I suppose. Typical Japanese arrogance.
Forgive me, but I don't believe arrogance is an appropriate description. After all, at our previous encounter, the defendant was found innocent.
Very true. And a more fascinating and dark trial was too. The tragic conclusion came later, of course. Here's to the antiquated and his unfortunate violent end. Thank you, Counsel. I see both sides are in fine fettle. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are you ready to carry out your duties here in court as impartial members of the public? You never know when you might be down on your luck, but I believe in fair play for everyone.
Well, I must warn you, I'm a rather ruthless one, I am. Not me. What you see is what you get. In my piece, I'm a peace-loving fellow. Hey, it's you. You shouldn't be there. I was hoping you wouldn't be in this courtroom. I'm afraid to say it might be quite possible that mustache foreigner did the deed.
Oh, come on, what are we waiting for? No doubt you did it anyway. Eh? Story? Didn't quite catch that. What'd he say? Very well. Let us proceed.
I love Prof so much.
Your opening statement, if you please, Lord Van Zykes. Very recently, Great Britain signed an alliance with the rising power of the Far East. The accused in the dock today is a student from that same land. A certain Mr. Soseki Tsume. And while our country has ended this
Pardon me.
foreign student, warmest of welcome. Regrettably, kindness has not been returned. In fact, the student used of a most sinister act of plunging a knife into the back of an innocent woman who was doing nothing but walking down the street. A knife crime. I tell you from bitter experience, those are the worst. Bloody oath they are.
Just look at that sallow complexion of short stature. He's one of those dreadful Japanese.
Come on, get it over with. With me now, everyone. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, didn't quite catch that.
The old fella's gonna be the best one.
Pray forgive the discourtesy of smashing hollow bridge. Allow me to call first witness to the stand. Very well. Bailiff, leave the inspector in, please.
Oh, we get Inspector Gregson. Nice.
Your name and...
King Dora Fifiva. A. Shouldn't it be E?
E.
I don't have that emote. I don't think I have that emote. Nope, unfortunately not.
E.
How are you today?
Your name and occupation, please. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, detective of Scotland Yard. Would you please summarize the events of the case for the court, Inspector? The victim is thought to be a young woman in her 20s, by the name of Olive Green. I beg your pardon, Inspector. What to be? Yes, and was stabbed in the back by her attacker's knife. The victim fell unconscious. That was 3 days ago now, and she's been comatose ever since.
What? I don't even know who she is for sure.
Comatose, I see. But her life is not in danger. Fortunately for the Eastern student, the charge will not be murder. Pray elaborate on the details, Inspector. Sir, if I could ask everyone to look at this street map. As I mentioned, the incident took place 3 days ago at around 5 in the afternoon. It happened on the pavement running alongside Briar Road, the wide thoroughfare of horse-drawn... A wide thoroughfare for horse-drawn vehicles. It had not long since stopped snowing as the victim, Miss Green, was walking down the street. Out of the blue, she was approached from behind by the accused, stabbed in the back.
But was it? Was she? I don't think so. That's not what I've been told.
Luckily, the young lady's life was spared. She's currently being treated in one of the city's hospitals. But being unconscious as she is, we've been unable to take a statement from her, of course. This is the case file with everything we need to know about the victim so far. Thank you, Inspector. The court will accept the documents as evidence, if you please.
Yay, we got another piece of evidence. We're short on those.
What of the weapon that was used? Sir, I have that here. It was removed from the victim's back.
Ouch. That big thing is starting to make me scared to walk down the street now. With a heavy blade like that, almost anyone would have been able to be stabbed. With a heavy blade like that, almost anyone would have been able to stab the poor woman. Even the scragged-looking Soseki-san, I suppose.
A common or garden jackknife, I would say. Rather nondescript. Thank you, Inspector. The court accepts the blade as evidence.
Core pieces.
Now then, what do we know about the motive? Money? Valuables, I presume? From what I can tell, looking at the woman's possessions, it seems she's a poor student herself. Hard to imagine she'd have anything much worth pinching, my lord. I see. Well, in that case, we are looking at some deep-seated resentment towards the victim. I'm afraid I couldn't say. Apart from visiting second-hand bookshops, the defendant, Mr. Natsume, doesn't appear to get out much. At this moment in time, we haven't been able to establish any sort of connection between him and the victim.
Yes!
Yes. If theft and grievance have been ruled out of the motive, what reason could Mr. Natsume possibly have for stabbing the young woman? Yet, you arrest the man in spite of that, in a totally unjustified and heavy-handed way.
Objection!
Pray forgive the discourtesy for flinging a freshly uncorked bottle into the public gallery. But your words have covered its hallowed banquet. For it is you who is being heavy-handed here.
What?
Scotland Yard does not arrest people at good cause. Beyond question. Inspector Gregson, execution calls for your formal testimony. Explain to the court precisely why the constabulary came to arrest the Nipponese student. Yes, sir. As I said, it was 5 o'clock around the afternoon the incident occurred. And there was an unusually light fog. Visibility is reasonably good and there's no one else but the victim and the accused. Out of the blue, the victim was stabbed from behind, subsequently collapsed on the pavement. The accused ran off, scattering his belongings all over the floor. There was being a number of old books he just bought. He was on his way home from the bookshop, it seems. That was just the matter. It was just a matter of working out who the books belonged to. We found the bloke, arrested him.
Alright, that's justified.
Old books, you say? Yes, my lord. I have a photograph here of the scene of the crime taken immediately after the incident. Ah, yes, I can clearly see the books to which you are referring. I will take that photographic print as evidence, please, Inspector.
I think I'm gonna throw my voice out, keep doing this. It's a good job the past examinations are mostly me.
You Nipponese are a spineless breed. Too cowardly to admit defeat. Denying everything despite overwhelming evidence contrary.
Well, forgive me, Lord Van Glyce, but the defendant is not denying everything, as you put it. What are you doing, Mr. Zato?
You go on.
Mr. Natsume had admitted to playing some part in the incident. Isn't that right, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, now that you mention it, when we visited him in the prison yesterday, he did tell us what had all happened. That doesn't seem right. He did tell us what had all happened. That's wrong. That all shouldn't be where it is. It should be before what? He did tell us all what had happened. That sentence doesn't make sense. Ridiculous.
As I was walking along the first pavement, I could make out a sole silhouette of another ahead of me. A woman, wearing a green overcoat she was. Just as I went over to take her, she suddenly let out a little scream and lapsed onto the cold hard slabs of the stone at my feet. I was terrified. I had to get away from there. So I ran, just as my little legs could carry me back to my accursed lodgings. A green overcoat?
Well, that's exactly what the woman in the print is wearing. Oh my, a photographic print in full colour. What will the world come up with next? The defendant has done nothing more than admit he fled the scene of the terrifying incident. That does not mean he's guilty of the heinous crime of stabbing the woman in the back. Yeah, take that.
There was no one else there at the time. Just the two of them. The victim and the accused. In other words, there's nobody else who could possibly have stabbed the woman. A fact that the accused concedes. It would seem this cross-examination could prove pivotal, counsel. Proceed, please.
Yes, my lord. Nothing for it. I have to use this cross-examination to turn the tables here. Only my only chance. Okay. I'm not going to reread these because I've already read them. So it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, uncomfortably light fog, right? So there's not really anything there. Visibility is reasonably good, no one else. Victim and the accused. Maybe we press that.
Hold it!
Hold it. Are we able to state that with any certainty?
Quite simply, my learned friend, because that is what the witnesses to this crime have told us.
Yes. Inspector Gregson mentioned the witnesses yesterday, didn't he? That's right. One of them's a policeman, I believe. From Scotland Yard?
That is correct, Mum.
Gets me every time. And we must hear their testimony.
The prosecution will, of course, call them to the stand, should it be necessary.
But wait a minute. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, in the middle of winter, it would have been dark already. No matter how light the fog may have been, no one could have seen.
I'm unaware of the situation on your tiny island in the east. But here in the capital city of Great Britain, all main roads are illuminated in the night by gas streetlight.
Oh.
The prosecution believes there would have been ample light by which to witness the crime. Quite. In London, it's the first time in history mankind has completely conquered darkness.
Oh, stop talking of your own city. Which means we really need to hear those witness statements. I could just get through the fog of this cross-examination, maybe we'll be able to.
It seems the counsel for the defense is taking stock. Continue with your testimony, Inspector.
Yeah? Out of the blue, the victim was stabbed from behind and subsequently collapsed on the pavement. Okay, so I got these. £2 for 3 books, right? Okay, we can't really tell what they are either, so...
Hold it!
Hold it. From behind you, sir.
That's right. As you can see from this print. Yes, quite so, Inspector. The handle of the weapon is clearly protruding from the victim's back. No need to dwell on it further. And you could say this poor woman, Mr. Green, remains in a critical condition. Comatose, no less. I'm afraid so, my lord. Yes. She's being treated at Bart's. I was hopeful that she'd come round before the trial started so I could take a statement, but it wasn't to be true. Yes, that is indeed a pity. It would have been most illuminating to hear the victim's own accounts of the events. Luck is on your client's side, it seems.
On the contrary, my client has been exceedingly unlucky.
Your force of tone is seriously undermined by those disturbingly wide-eyed, afraid.
Hold it!
Mr. Natsume's belongings?
I think you'll find it's all there in the photographic print of the crime scene. Yes, there are 3 books on the floor. That's right, my lord. Second-hand books they were. Irreparably damaged after falling in the snow, of course. The accused could easily have carried all 3 books in one hand. Which means his other hand would have been free to wield a knife, for example.
He's very clever, isn't he? What do you mean? You made it extremely hard for you to assert that Mr. Natsume had his hands full with books. He's managed to close one avenue of escape we mightn't have had before we even knew it was there.
You mean to say that the defendant was holding his belongings as he thrust the knife into the woman's back? That must be what happened, my lord, yes. There's been a number of old books he just bought. He was on his way home from the bookshop, it seems. It was just a matter of working out who the books belonged to. We found the bloke and arrested him.
Yeah, but... Right, here's the problem. Is I can't investigate this. And it's very possible that... Like, because she was coming home with books as well. So where are her books? No, it's like... Let's press this one.
Hold it!
Mr. Natsume's... Oh, right, I think we've done this one. Yeah, we have done this one. Okay, those being a number of L books you bought from the bookshop, right? Hold it. The defendant apparently visits a second-hand bookshop on a daily basis.
Yes, do I understand? A shop full of old English literature. I commend the accused on the lofty subject matter of his scholarly attention. The bloke's room was stacked floor to ceiling with those musky old books.
Can you tell us more about the bookshop in question, please, Inspector?
Well, if I must, I'll have to ask you to look at the street map again, I'm afraid. The closest second-hand bookshop to the accused lodgings is this place here, Bourbon Books.
Bourbon. Not even bourbon. Or is it? It's either bourbon or bourbon. And those are two completely separate things in England. Bourbon is alcohol. Bourbon is a chocolate biscuit. I'm pretty sure that's bourbon. I'm gonna call it the chocolate bookshop.
A little place in a corner of Bry Road and Meersham Street. As it happens, the accused is currently living in lodgings on the other side of Bry Road, at the opposite end. Which means it doesn't take a genius to work out the route he must have taken home. Something like this.
Okay. That seems interesting because I think we can prove that he probably didn't pass her.
Yes, I concur with your conclusion, Inspector. The defendant would certainly have passed the scene of the crime on his way home from that particular shop.
Mr. Naruhodo, I think that what the inspector just told us could turn out to be of vital importance. Yeah, I agree. The most important point that the inspector just made being obviously the location. The crucial detail in what you just told the court, Inspector, is the location of the bookshop.
I couldn't agree more.
So, where is it exactly?
Eh? Are you winding me up, Sunshine? I just explained that. I got the map out and everything. It was in red blooming ink. I drew the bloke's route on for you. I distinctly remember seeing you nod along, Counsel.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course. I must have been so nervous I didn't take it in.
The blunder of the day goes to you, learned friend.
No, not yet. The trial's only just begun, at least. Mr. Naruhodo, I would strongly advise you look carefully through your court record at this stage. Yes, miss. At once, miss. Sorry I made a mistake, miss. Alright.
Hold it!
Let's do it again. So that could turn out to be of vital importance. The most important point than expected is made being... That's going to be the name because he didn't tell us the stock. Inspector Gregson, can I ask you a favour?
What?
Can you kindly add the name of the bookshop to your formal testimony, please? Oh, it's not the same bookshop, is it? It could be of vital importance.
Maybe.
Oh, well, yes, it could be a very important clue.
Very well, but I can see it being of any great significance. Please revise your testimony accordingly, Inspector. Yes, sir, my lord. Whatever you say.
Could the man be any more sardonic?
He was on his way home from Bourbon Books, Chocolate Bookshop. His second-hand bookshop he apparently patronises.
Objection!
Objection.
If I could just stop you there, Inspector. Excellent.
What is it, sunshine? I'm a busy man.
This is a receipt we found in Mr. Natsume's room. It was issued on the day of the incident and details the purchases of 3 second-hand books.
You found that in the accused's room, did you?
Yes, but the point is not where the receipt was found, the name of the shop that's printed on it.
Go on.
This receipt was issued from a bookshop called Your Books.
Your books. Y-O-R-E, I presume.
Yes, my lord. So Mr. Natsume did indeed purchase a number of books at a second-hand bookshop on that day. However, the bookshop in question was not the chocolate bookshop.
What? Inspector, do you know of this other bookshop? Yes, sir. Your books is in a second-hand bookshop, not far from that chocolate bookshop.
I'm going to make sure I'm not being stupid and it's actually chocolate bookshop. No? Oh, maybe. Bourbon. Bourbon biscuit is a sandwich biscuit of 2 thin, rectangular, dark. Dark chocolate flavoured biscuits with a chocolate buttercream filling. I am right. Nice. I likey. I like it when I'm right.
It's just that, it's such a small place. I didn't think the accused would have known about it.
Objection!
But in fact, that is the bookshop where the defendant visited on the day in question. And this receipt proves it.
Objection!
Yes, well, what difference it makes. Wherever the man purchases musky tomes, it makes no difference in the final analysis.
Objection!
I disagree. I mean, after all, I have the stream up here if that would be of help. Oh, yes. Thank you. Have a look, please. lieutenant had been returning from Bourbon Books. And yes, he would almost certainly have passed the place where Miss Green was attacked. However, if we take into account the fact that he actually had another bookshop, Eurobooks, it may well turn out that he couldn't have passed that location at all.
Would that be true?
My, it's a rather depends on the bookshop, isn't it? I do declare that it could be a possibility.
Is that right, Mr. Laura?
Huh? What you just said? Absolutely. It absolutely could be right.
Inspector Gregson, where is this your books establishment? Well, obviously we looked into that. It turns out that your books is just here on the next corner of Meerschaum Street, going east.
Now see, it still means you could have come back across Meerschaum Street and not down Calabar Street. We can't guarantee which way he came back. And there you have it. As you can clearly see now. Oh. Exactly. It means absolutely nothing. My job's never easy.
My learned Nipponese friend is obviously in training to be... The way he regales us with such witticism. Your future career in the circus.
You put that glass down now. I'll put it down for you.
I didn't think I needed to spell it out for you, but there you go. If the accused was coming down from your books instead of Bourbon Books. Bourbon Books. There's no doubt he still would have passed the place the victim was being stabbed. Yes, thank you, Inspector. Allow me to reiterate for my learned if somewhat slow Nipponese friend. Wherever the man purchased his musky tomes and final analysis.
Oh, yes. That's better.
I suspected. You can't fool me. And I don't suggest you try. What I say? I've had just about enough of this. Beg your pardon. I'm sorry. Would you mind repeating that?
That guy's deaf. He shouldn't be on the jury. We are an interpreter, at least. An interpreter. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't give up. What? What do you mean? The prosecution's assertion is correct. The members of the jury may well decide Mr. Natsume is guilty. Oh. Guess she's right. We must think. We must consider the assertion just put forward by the prosecution very carefully. It claims Seki-san must have passed the location of the incident on his way home from your book. But here's the thing. Just like we're going to raise this objection now and probably say, no, he went the other way. We have no evidence. And I'm almost certain We have no evidence. It's 4:45, right? Which is like 15 minutes. Now, I'm no expert in timekeeping, right? He purchases these books, he walks out. If he goes back that way, he's going immediately downhill, which means he'll bump into her, potentially before 5 p.m., right? So case file reads that she was it says around 5 p.m. Annoyingly, oh, well here, Mr. Naruhodo. A tip. A small piece of the blade appears to be missing. You're right. Well spotted, Miss Suzuto. I wonder what could have happened to it. Yeah. You don't think it could still be lodged in the victim, do you? Oh dear. I do hope not. That sounds terribly painful. Oh, I thought we were going to like kind of work something out from that. Is yeah, we kind of got nothing. It's fine. We'll raise the objection, and it's going to give like reasonable doubt, which should mean that the call the witnesses in. Blah 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 blah. Right. The assertion just made by the prosecution is fundamentally flawed.
Explain yourself, counsel.
Yes, my lord. You can see what I mean on this map. When returning from your books to his lodgings, Mr. Natsume could have followed the route suggested by the prosecution. However, that's not the only conceivable route he could have taken in between the two places. If the defendant used these streets, look what happens. He arrives back at his lodgings without passing the location where the victim was attacked.
Objection!
Walking back to a clown is a fool's errand, of course. However, I feel compelled to point out that that route is what is commonly referred to as the long way around. On a cold winter's night, why would any man choose the longer route home?
Well,
The answer is extremely simple. He wouldn't. In other words, the accused took the obvious route back to his lodgings, and the obvious perpetrator, and is the obvious perpetrator of the crime.
Objection!
where's your proof? But, yes, I've got it. Obviously, we must ask the man himself. Ask Mr. Natsume which route he took home.
I have already informed the court of the accuser's response to such questioning. He claims he has no recollection.
Oh.
That's right. As I said, the bloke seems to spend his time outside wandering aimlessly from A to B. That day was no exception, because he don't remember where he was or which route he took home.
I don't believe it.
I thank you, learned friend, and suggest that we do not waste any more of the wandering subject. Pray, what say you, insightful jurors?
But even if that's the case, the defense.
I agree with Lord Van Zoix. Wholeheartedly, every way.
What? I don't believe it. Does this mean.
We members of the jury are completely convinced now. Very well. In that case, I hereby call upon all members of the jury to present your findings to the court.
Guilty.
Guilty.
Guilty. Guilty. Guilty. Guilty.
That voice does not suit the big guy. Okay. How many times are we going to be able to play this mini game?
It would appear the jury is leaning to unanimous. To the insightful members of the jury, I applaud your brave resolve. You serve Queen and country admirably.
Mr. Naruhodo. No, not yet. This isn't over yet. We still have one last chance to sway the opinion of the jury. I have to tip the balance of those scales the other way. To turn this around. Somehow.
Those eyes of Quarry not yet willing to give up and die. So I presume you intend to wield your rights again in this trial? Rights of the defense written in antiquated British law that should have been buried long ago.
Call it antiquated if you will. But the defense's prerogative is to carry out the summation examination if it so chooses.
Very well, counsel. In accordance with the letter of the law, we shall proceed with a summation examination. Are the members of the jury ready, Mr. Foreman? Of course we're ready. I'm all too familiar with that Nipponese whippersnapper and his uncle's refusal to throw in his alley. Very well then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You will all each explain on what grounds you have determined the defendant to be guilty. Judicial findings. For pity's sake, that little Nipponese officer already admitted it himself, didn't he?
Have you said that a woman in green collapsed before his eyes? Why, it could only be the victim. It could only have been the victim. The man would have gone around his house on the way back from the butter shop, not in winter. But the poor woman was attacked from behind, was she? How dreadful.
I don't really care. We'll just write this up now. I got work to be doing. Your books. It's a nice bookshop, but boring books. No, not worth a visit.
How is that relevant? How is that relevant to the case?
With only minor exceptions, the reasons for finding the defendant guilty are all too clear. When the stabbing occurred, the only two people seen were the victim.
Sorry, I'm doing multiple things at once.
And He accused himself. He admitted to seeing the victim in the green overcoat sink to the ground before his eyes. Furthermore, we have heard from the inspector that the defendant then fled the scene. I must say, I would have ample grounds to convict this man already.
Oh dear. Even the judge appears convinced of Mr. Natsume's guilt now. Why do you have to run away like that? And how are we supposed to believe in some phantom attacker that no one could see? This is impossible. How can I possibly make a case for the defense? Mr. Naruhodo, now is no time for grumbling. Do you want to force the trial to continue? Yeah, I know. Gotta turn the tide, but how do I make the jurors change their mind? Well, 4 of them at least. Exactly. We have no choice but to forge forward. Hey, I love this game. It's full of all kinds of positivity. Granted, it's got a lot of death, but, you know, got a lot of positivity about sticking to your guns.
You have the floor, counsel. Begin your summation examination.
Yes, my lord. I just need to keep this trial going somehow. Whatever it takes. Come on, Ryan, this game. You can do this. Guess we'll find out where I can. Jury examination. Okay. So, he already admitted it himself. He said the woman in green clasped for his eyes. That can only be the victim, not necessarily. The man would have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop, not in winter. So the poor woman was attacked from behind, was she? How dreadful. Alright, so he's completely useless. Well, this guy's saying that your books is a nice shop. Corbin Books isn't. Juror number 5 is completely worthless because he's literally just telling us, I don't care, I want to go home. Now. I'm sorry, I am so sorry, I really do not know how to pronounce your name. Tresdin Aznable? Thank you. How are you? Close enough? How is it pronounced? I want to get it right. Restin Aznable. Restin Aznable. I think I got it. Hey! Okay, so he admitted it himself, apparently. He said the woman in green clasped for his eyes. That's it. Just because she claps doesn't mean anything. Anyone else could have been wearing a green jacket. He wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop. Right, you don't know that. It's common sense, but this is court. You need evidence. He's attacked from behind, apparently. If he went back, which way was she walking? Their allegation is... He walks down Calderbash Road. He's right in front of the victim. He's in front of her that way, not behind her. Pavement of Briar Road, east side. Remains unaccomplished, and there was a gleam of personal effects. Other details are unknown, apart from a single stab wound with a large knife, no other signs of injury observed. He was running away, successfully arrested the following day. Running away which way though? Oh, I can press!
Hold it!
A man's life is on the line here, sir. This will take as long as it takes.
Don't get clever with me now, Sam. My life's on the line too, and so is my family.
Ah,
The likes of you won't understand, but a labourer like me can't afford to take time off. If I don't work, I don't eat. And neither do me wife and kids.
oh, I see. That must be very hard.
I go to the union every morning to find out what needs doing. If you're late and the work's taken, it's tough. This time of year, there's water and gas supply pipes bursting left, right and centre. They're after cheap labour to get the roads dug up. Fix it.
It throws out there. You've got a lovely voice. Thank you. Everybody says that. Everybody says that for some reason. Gets me every time. Thank you. Maybe because it's true though. Just maybe. I'm gonna put together a compilation of You've Got a Lovely Voice by the time I'm finished. Ah, tears of joy. Thank you. So, you were out digging up the roads on the day of the incident as well, were you?
That's right. In fact, I remember rightly. It was just round the corner from where it all happened. That old bookshop it was.
What? Another coincidence.
That's right. Michigan Street was.
Michigan Street. Mr. Naruhodo, there are only 3 named streets. Juror number 5, I need you to add that information to your formal statement, please.
What's the point of that? Can't we just get this business over with now?
Please, sir. It's important.
Fine. I'll do it then.
Tickles me. The day it happens, I was digging up Michigan Street from dusk till dawn. From dawn till dusk. So I can pit these two together.
Objection!
Those two statements are clearly at odds with one another.
At odds, counsel. Explain yourself.
Please, don't point. Wasn't me, I swear.
Yeah, what? I just wanted to get this done and dusted.
Well, juror number 3. Me, sir? What do you mean? Juror number 5's words just now are extremely significant. Let's just take a moment to consider the implications of what's just been said on our map of the local area. On the day in question, Mr. Natsume visited his bookshop to purchase a number of second-hand books. And on the same day, we now know that there were works being carried out on Meerschaum Street, making that impassable. Which means the defendant's route home would not have taken him along Meerschaum Street and down Briar Road. Oh, yes, of course. But what do you think, sir?
Yeah, you can't argue with that, really, can you? We must have had a good 2 yards or more of pavement up. Every gentleman and gentlewoman that came along had to turn back and go the other way.
You could have told us that earlier, man. So the only conclusion is this. The defendant must have taken the longer route back to his lodgings. Yes, I suppose he must have.
I suppose that must be right.
Juror number 3, you said the following. The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop, but we now see that he had no choice. My lord, Mr. Judge, sir, if I may.
Yes.
I don't think in all good conscience that I can say that this man's guilty now. Yes, I'd like to see this trial continue so we can get to the bottom of what really happened. Nice to see at least that one not guilty. What about you, sir?
Who? Me? Well, alright then. If there's a hole in the prosecution's argument, it should be filled in. That's what I say.
That's 2. Alright, so we've done 1. Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo. That was wonderful. Well, I managed to change a couple of minds at least. It strengthened our position somewhat. Yes, and it will prompt the other members of the jury to reconsider their stance as well. They'll be asking themselves if their current leanings are really right or not. Now, if we could just identify one more clue or discrepancy, that would make them stop doubting Mr. Natsume, for now at least. We might be able to tip the balance completely. Yeah, That's exactly what we've got to do. Van Zykes is looking to bring this trial to an early conclusion. That's what we have to prevent, by whatever means we have at our disposal.
Thank you, Council. On with the examination, please.
Yes, my lord. Okay, so I can't put these two guys against each other again. However, there's no way she could have been attacked from behind this time. Okay, so his argument isn't... If he said that a woman in green collapsed before him, before his eyes, it can only have been the victim. I might have to press actually.
Hold it!
Excuse me, but aren't you,
Yes, that's right. I was in the witness stand myself just 2 days ago.
Yes, I had a feeling I knew your face, or the sight of it, anyways. If I remember correctly, you're a banker, aren't you?
That's right. After the gold rush down under, I came back to London for work. It was all going swimmingly until you started fossicking around. Bruce Fairplay is a man of repute.
Sorry?
Don't think I've forgotten how you treated me the other day. You had me and that young actor pegged as criminals.
Oh, well, water under the bridge?
Now, there's all sorts of rumours buzzing around, and the police have been badgering me non-stop.
If I could turn back the clock.
Oh, anyway, I don't know about the Hatter, but at least I'm in the clear now. I'm free to make up my own mind about who's guilty and who ain't.
Ah, thank goodness. Alright, maybe I might struggle to change this man's mind, given our awkward history. What an amazing interaction. Oh dear, I wonder what become of Mr. Thirst now. Okay.
Hold it!
Press this one. You're right about the time of... You're right that at the time of the incident, the defendant admits to having seen someone wearing a green overcoat walking ahead of him. Well, quite. That's precisely my point. Clearly, that somebody wearing green was the victim. And clearly that funny little Nipponese man with the disturbing mustache is the culprit. But let us not forget, madam, the defendant vehemently denies attacking the woman. Why, of course he does. If he admits to stabbing her, his life is over. The man obviously is a liver-faced coward, honestly, claiming the woman simply collapsed before his eyes. But if that is a lie, if that's a lie, and if that's a lie as you're suggesting, do you not think he would have concocted something more credible? Oh, I really couldn't say. After all, you are foreign. Who's to say what goes through your funny little minds? Ooh, that is bad. You can't say that. If I could tell you what's going through my funny little mind right now, you wouldn't like it. Exactly. I do declare the man has already made the assumption. He himself has stated that there was nobody else around. Surely the conclusion is obvious. No one else could possibly have committed this awful crime. If nobody else could have done it, the accused would be the man. Really, it couldn't be more simple. Well, it could. It could be somebody else.
Your argument is compelling in its simplicity, I must admit.
Oh my, you're too kind, my lord. That went well. For her. Okay, he's certain. Let's press her.
Hold it!
Whatever's the matter, young man? You're the wife of Mr. Garadib, aren't you? The landlord who rents Mr. Natsume's room. Oh yeah, we've kind of just... Well, we kind of broke that promise. The master's wife? Where'd you get your ideas, sir? I'm the maid. The maid, you understand? Who's keeping up that charade? This is gonna be awkward. Why didn't you mention this yesterday? That you'd been selected for the jury in the trial, I mean? Well, I was told not to mention it to anyone until the day of the trial, you understand. It was in the letter I received. The instructions were very clear. No, I'm afraid I had no choice. I see. Anyway, Mr. Natsume, the defendant takes lodging in your master's home, does he? Yes, that's right. Although he's only been there for a little over a week now. And in that time, surely you must have taken stock of his character. Does Mr. Natsume look like the kind of man who would commit a crime such as this? Oh my goodness me, yes. He's just the sort. What? Spending all his time in that dark and dingy room, sporting the unscrupulous mustache. The man never speaks. And don't get me started on those shifty eyes. All the neighbors are talking about him. I've heard them, you know. People think he must be building a bomb in there or something. Oh dear. Mr. Natsume. How could people say such things about him? He's just a harmless bookworm. Nothing more. Well, you just called him a worm, so... Anyway, we best be careful about inviting this maid to speak. He's said enough damning things already. Okay, just this guy, but I can't see how this is relevant.
Hold it!
Sorry. Hold it, you say? Hold what?
No. What I said was, hold it. What I wanted to ask you was, do you visit your books often?
I like the old books they have in there, yes. I enjoy reading them over a nice cup of old tea. That's my daily routine, you see. Same thing every day. Including the day you're all talking about.
At what time did you visit your books on the day in question?
Well, I was picking out books in there all afternoon. And just before 5 that I left. That's my daily routine, you see. Same thing every day. Including the day you're all talking about.
Okay, this... this is not the way to entice a view of old people. No matter how true it is. Just before 5, you say, exactly when the victim was attacked. No way. I've just realised. It better not be. Are you sure about that?
Oh yes, no mistake there. I remember it well. I'm not about to forget that day in a hurry. Not after the dreadful time I had.
Okay, my theory's correct. It's him that fell. It's him that fell, not the victim. What do you mean?
I was walking down Calabash Road when I slipped on the ice and dunked my head. It's always worse after the snow stopped falling. That's when it's the most slippery. Knocked myself clean out, I did. I really thought my number was up.
Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. This happened on Calabash Road?
That's right. I live in Cornpine, you see. Cornpipe. Heading down Calabash Road is the quickest way for me to get back from your books.
Juror number 6, I must insist that you add that information to your formal statement. It may very well be extremely significant. Of course it's extremely significant.
Sorry. Extremely sick. No, I'm quite alright now.
Can't be doing that to old people. You've changed 2 of the jurors' minds, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, just 2 more to go. Deliver the finishing blow, now. This is the time to turn the tables here. Wish I knew how to do a Suzuto takedown. Those words will have to suffice for now. And now pit her against Juror 6.
Objection!
Objection. Those 2 statements clearly show a flaw in the juror's reasoning.
A flaw? What are you talking about, counsel?
Well, juror number 2, juror number 6. My, whatever do you mean, sir? I think perhaps the old man didn't hear you. Unbelievable. Not like it was loud or anything. There's at least one fact of which we can be sure here. The bookshop receipt found in the defendant's room clearly indicates on the day of the attack, he had been to your books and purchased a number of second-hand titles. He then returned home on foot. But the man says he has no recollection of his return journey. That's correct. But what he does remember is seeing someone appear in front of him on the way. Someone in a green overcoat who suddenly collapsed on the pavement before his eyes. Yes, we're all very aware of this. The poor young woman who was stabbed, obviously.
Objection!
No. Can we really be sure of that, madam? My, whatever do you mean? I'm sure you've heard juror number 6's account of what happened to him that day. The same afternoon, there was somebody else apart from the victim who was wearing a green overcoat and who fell over on the icy streets in the neighborhood. Oh my! My goodness! You mean mean? That's right. I'm referring, of course, to hard of hearing juror number 6. Oh, are you really suggesting that the person in the green overcoat who the defendant saw collapse in front of his eyes was the jolly old gentleman on the end of the bench here with me today? Yeah, that's a good coincidence, that, isn't it? That's entirely possible, yes. After all, the old man is a somewhat similar build to the victim.
Well, look at that.
My goodness me.
Sorry. You need a pee.
And crucially, we know precisely where the old man in the green overcoat fell. On Calabash Road. Therefore, if the person who Mr. Natsume saw collapsing in front of him was in fact juror number 6, it means the defendant must have taken the long route back to his lodgings. And if that's true, then clearly the crime scene on Briar Road where the woman was stabbed was not on his way home. Oh my! Hey, we completely turned this.
You idiot old man. If you hadn't been so daft as to go roaming around there, we'd have boxed this off hours ago.
And really, what were you thinking? Wearing such a befuddling coat?
What are you saying to me? Is it a crime for the elderly to walk the street these days? Is it a crime to slip over on the ice? Is it a crime to keep up with the latest styles and wear a beautiful green overcoat, is it?
My lord, I hope it won't be of any inconvenience, but,
You'd like to change your leaning, I presume.
I do declare that I would. I should like to call for a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
And I would too.
What?
Is it a crime to change your mind, is it? Well...
Nice. It's in our favour now.
Well, that summation examination has concluded with a rather large shift in opinion. The eyes 2, the nose 4. So the nose have it. Not guilty, they say. Which means we no longer have a consensus among the members of the jury. The trial will continue.
Objection!
Would it seem girlish of me to drink from my hollow chalice moments after raising an objection? Or only to crush it in disgust? Pray forgive the discourtesy.
Lord Van Zykes?
It seems I must retract my earlier remark.
What do you mean?
I mistakenly credited these jurors with intelligence by describing them as insightful. Yet, we've just witnessed them falling for a cheap trick performed by an Eastern entertainer. Eh?
Whatever do you you mean?
Objection.
I haven't tricked anyone. Everything I've just said is the truth.
Indeed. Stalwart juror number 5 was undoubtedly repairing the road as he claims. I believe you said it was a good 2 yards from the pavement which you had excavated, sir. That's right, it took me all day. And they paid me a measly 2pence for it. Now, my learned Japanese friend, tell me, do you have any notion of the distance that 2 yards represents?
Well, if I'm honest, I don't have a clue, no. 2 yards is a little less than 2 meters. Less than 2 meters? That's not much at all.
In other words, a distance readily vaulted by anyone of moderate vigor. Would you not agree, my stalwart friend? Me? Well, I can't say you're wrong, no.
What?
And did you perchance erect a sign to prevent pedestrians from passing the site of your work? I wouldn't dream of it. What a waste of time. No coaches would have had a hope of passing anyway. We just turn any gentlefolk back from where they came. Kids just jump right over us all the time. The accused is no gentleman, as far as I can see. I have little doubt, however, that he could spring over a 2-yard trench in his meanderings around town.
Is that true?
The incontrovertible truth is that the books just purchased by the accused were found at the scene. There can be no doubt that on his way back to his lodgings, Mr. Natsume walked down Briar Road.
Crushed in a single sentence.
And old man. Old man! You could talk! You said that at around 5 o'clock on the day in question, you slipped and fell on Calabash Road. Pray, was there a suspicious-looking Nipponese behind you at the time? Can't say I remember.
You don't remember?
How about a wager, my learned friend? You say it was this old man that the accused saw, but I would lay 1,000 to 1 against you being able to prove it.
Actually, I can prove it. Not with proof, but with conjecture.
Order! Order! Lord Van Zykes, explain yourself. My lord, if you had such a treacherous argument up your sleeve, why in the world did you not proffer it during the summation examination? I wanted to give this young foreign student the sightseeing experience no doubt came for. I wanted him to see for himself the opinion of the jury, so decidedly sweet. But my hospitality is at its limit. And they have been reached, I feel. So, my learned friend, today's sightseeing tour of London over.
What are you talking about?
My lord, the prosecution requests permission to call its next witness to the stand. Granted. Bailiff, bring forth the witness.
It's next witness. Mr. Naruhodo, do you not remember? We've been told on several occasions that there were eyewitnesses to the incident. Yes, I remember. One of them being a Scotland Yard policeman, no less. I'm afraid that's likely to be the prosecution's next witness. Alright. No matter who Van Zykes brings to the stand as his witness, no matter what they say, I believe in Soseki. I know he's innocent. And I'll keep believing that to the very end, until this battle is over. Here's the thing, that's actually an incorrect way to do this.
Witness, please state your name and occupations for the court.
Constable Rowley Beats, sire. Nothing to report on the streets, sir. Looks like Roly Poly. Right, no. And I'm Mrs. Beat. Trish is my name. I am so proud to say this young town hero's wife. Okay, Mrs. Beat. Looks like Mrs. Beat's her husband. What's the story here? Well, in truth, we've not been married long. In fact, we celebrated our first anniversary just the other day. No. It was your husband I was asking about. He seems tired.
Hardly surprising. Whilst being an honourable occupation, trolling the beat in the most demanding work in the world.
Oh, really? I'm sure I've heard that before, actually.
Indeed. Often the rare days off, our gallant officers trudge some 20 miles a day, you know. They patrol boarding houses, pubs, collect taxes, survey the streets, check the meters, are reading true.
Ah, capitalism.
And they're responsible for keeping the streets clean and lighting and extinguishing our streetlights.
There are a number of items on that list that don't sound like policing duties at all. That's what I was thinking. I wouldn't just be falling asleep. I wouldn't just be falling asleep at my feet. I'd have collapsed long ago.
But it goes without saying that a policeman's primary duty is the apprehension of criminals. Even when he's off duty, a constable is expected to investigate and resolve any crimes on his beat.
Oh yeah, because this is before the time of like 9 to 5, right? Fair enough. Seems unfair, but okay.
For the London Bobby, man of honor.
And a man of slumber.
On the day in question, this man and his wife were walking down Briar Road in the opposite direction when they witnessed the incident as it occurred. Is that not correct, Mr. and Mrs. Beat?
That's right, sir. Isn't it, Rowley? Constable Ray Burley, sir. Having to report on the street, sir. What a great witness he's gonna be. Let me finish this coffee. Okay.
Very good. I'd like to hear your formal testimonies now, please. You will tell the court exactly what you saw on the afternoon of the incident.
Yes, sir. Okay. It was our wedding anniversary, and Rowley was taking me out for a meal. There was no time to change after work. Anyway, two silhouettes approached out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. All of a sudden, one of them just collapses on the floor, and the other scattered something before running off. We ran straight over, of course, and then went for help at the nearby police box. It was definitely that Japanese man at the dock. Rowley and I both saw him clear as day. But you didn't. You saw a silhouette.
Well, this is an extremely compelling testimony, I must say.
Oh dear. This policeman and his wife are claiming to have positively identified Mr. Natsumi at the scene. If their testimony is true, the alternate course of events that you established in your summation and examination will be quashed.
It's Death Knell, in fact. Because that alternative was never viable in the first place. What an unfortunate bechancing! And on your wedding anniversary too.
Oh, I know. But I still managed to go out for the evening with my man. I thank the Lord for that. Gosh, the life of a London Bobby sure sounds very hard indeed.
Indeed. However, this cross-examination will be over in minutes. You may well have time to rest this afternoon.
What do you mean by that?
My learned friend, the witnesses saw the face of the man fleeing the scene. They are testifying under oath that it was without doubt the accused Mr. Suseki Natsume. And one of these witnesses, policeman, yes. So you appreciate the gravity of the situation. Sure.
Except that the man's so tired, his wife has to do all the talking. Exactly. I think she did it.
Enough preamble. Counsel for the defense, commence your cross-examination, please.
Yes, my lord. Okay. What we saw. It was our wedding anniversary. Earlier was taking me out for a meal. There was no time to change after work? Okay, I don't need to know the intricacies of your, relationship. Other than he's either extremely tired or he gets beaten up. Anyway, two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. Did they? Two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. All of a sudden, one of them collapsed on the floor and the other scattered something before running off. He wouldn't scatter them, is the thing. But what you gotta consider is, let's say that it was viable that he actually did walk into him, and then he says he runs off, right? So he runs in the other direction. That means he runs across Measham Street and down Briar Road back to his house, which means he actually passes these two. Unless it was it was him that collapsed. We went straight over, of course, and then went to help the nearest police box. Look, alright. There's no way you saw him clear as day. Simple as that. There's absolutely no way. Okay. Let me press about what was scattered, right? Because it could very well be books, but I want to know exactly what books.
Hold it!
Scattered something? What do you mean by that? Oh well, I couldn't quite make out what it was at the time. But when we got closer, we realised what it was. Didn't we, darling?
Yeah, that's right. It's old books. I see. Old books. Yes, sir! The culprit had dropped a number of them. All around where the victim lay on the pavement. Indeed. As clearly pictured by the photographic print.
That rotten Japanese man did this when he did the deed.
Hold it!
Let's not forget that it remains to be established that the defendant was indeed the attacker. But we saw him. It was the man at the dock, without question. The mustache, the hunchback, the hat-like eyes, open mouth, snub nose, everything. Any more insults you want to throw in? That's right. He looked down at that poor defenseless woman with his terrifying, intense eyes. And then suddenly threw his books onto the pavement and ran away. I see. This is tough. Though they seem like they're telling the truth.
May I remind the court that this unambiguous testimony comes from a policeman and his wife. Now please, continue. Yes, sir.
We ran straight over, of course. Then we went for help at a nearby police box. We ran straight over, of course, and then went for help at a nearby police box. I am going to have to BRB very quickly. I will leave you with the wonderful sounds of Pretzel. Pretzel, you're coming back! Can you believe it? I'm going to BRB. I'll be about 2 minutes at best. But I leave you with Pretzel, the greatest music bot known to man. Thank you very much. Okay. Back to the wonderful sounds of Airstone.
Hold it!
Yeah, I wanted to press this one. Was it your husband who went to fetch help? No, I went. I may not be a police officer myself, but I am the proud wife of one, after all. Isn't that right, my darling?
What one?
Ah, yes, that's right. I asked Mrs. Beat to go. I was off duty by that point. But Bobby's never truly off duty, of course, so I felt obliged to stay and guard the scene.
Very laudable, Mr. Beat. Preserving the scene of a crime is the task of considerable importance. That's why I sent Patricia, you see. I told her where to find the right police box.
Forgive my ignorance, but what do you mean exactly by the right police box?
It depends on this crime's location, you see, as to who deals with it. Where the woman was stabbed wasn't actually on my beat. So I told Patricia to wait to the police box for the beat the incident fell under, so you could go and report it.
I ran there as quickly as I could. Ah, that shouldn't be there. No. Hey, this isn't a rerun. Get out of here. Ah, stream elements, you fail me again. To be fair, that's my fault. I'm not going to blame stream elements, it's my fault. But we can fix that right now. It's not a rerun. Thank you. Can I delete this message? Apparently not. Weird. Oh, I can. I have to turn this on. Delete this message. Yeah. Cool. Alright. We're all good from there. There's nothing more potent than a young couple in love. Working together, you know.
Thanks to your swift response, the case was quickly resolved. The actions of two modelled citizens.
Oh, please, you're making me blush. Isn't he, darling? Yes, sir. What Patricia said, Let's move on, shall we? It was definitely that Japanese man in the dark. Look, they can't have seen him clear as day because it was foggy, right? is right. They contradict themselves. Two silhouettes. Let me say so unclear as there.
Hold it!
Alright, I'm gonna press this because this seems interesting. Two silhouettes? That's right. They were coming towards us, walking up Briar Road in the opposite direction. There was a rather plump figure, followed by a scrawny, thin-looking man. That does sound exactly like the victim is pictured in the print. I'm Mr. Natsume. Yeah, unfortunately it does.
And you're certain that at the time there was nobody else nearby?
Oh yes, quite certain. It was dark, but there are street lights on Briar Road, you see. There was no one else around. Isn't that right, my darling? He's gonna end up with a broken neck, you keep doing that. Oh yes, that's right, of course. There was a light fog on the ground. Briar Road is dead straight. You can see a fairly long way down the pavement. And then there's the straight lighting as well. I didn't see any other pedestrians. Before sleep takes a firm hold, your answer please, Mr. Beat. Are you quite sure of what you just said? Yes, sir. As a copper who spends all day, every day, keeping watch on the streets, I swear to it, sir. Look at Patricia. She's like, oh, I'm so in painstaking, hard to love. He's probably also the murderer. As I'm sure as my love for Patricia is true. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. They're still maintaining that there was no one else around other than the victim and the attacker. It's starting to seem like that must be how it really happened. It's beginning to seem like there's nowhere to run. Well, that didn't stop Mr. Natsume, did it? He fled the scene all too convincingly.
Thank you. I believe we have a reasonably clear idea of the situation just before the incident now. What happened in the crucial moments that followed?
Okay, so we've seen this one. We've seen this one. So if we press this one... But surely you wouldn't have been able to see his face by the light of the gas street lamps, would you? We absolutely could! As Londoners have exceptional eyesight, I'll have you know. Alright, but stop breaking your boyfriend's neck. Right. The light from the street lamps is more than enough. And my husband already told you that fog was only light, didn't he? Yeah? And what of the fog?
We're famous for it across the globe, I believe. But it's an absolute menace to those of us who have to live with it, of course.
Oh, it is. When it's thick, you can't even see your hand at the end of your own arm. Yes, alright. I take your point. Now, could you stop shaking your husband about? Thank you, Ryan is scared. That is exactly what I wanted to say. The constant fog makes our eyes very sharp, you see. That's why we can tell you for sure and certain that it's a little Japanese man we saw. I'm not convinced. Aren't we, darling?
Yeah. It was the accused. No mistake. The mustache, the hunchback, the cat-like eyes, the dark mouth, unmistakable.
As far as this couple's testimony is concerned, there can't be any question. It was Soseki they saw running away from the scene of the crime. So, that's it, is it? That's their entire testimony. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I hate to admit it, but on hearing their testimony, it really does seem as though Mr. and Mrs. Beat saw what they say they saw. Mr. Natsume running away from the scene on Briar Road that day? Yeah, I feel the same. So, if that's true, where does that leave us? Members of the jury are sure to call for a guilty verdict after this testimony. Oh no. And what do we do? If Kazuma was here... What are you trying to say? I think you would try to find a contradiction somewhere else within their testimony. What do you mean, somewhere else? Their statement about seeing Mr. Natsume is unequivocal. Unequivocal. Calling that into question won't help. But if you could identify some other part of their testimony which appears to contradict the facts, you might be able to discredit them to make the jury doubt if the pair's memory on the day is accurate. Oh. Right. Put simply, we must focus on finding a discrepancy in these statements somewhere. If we don't, I'm afraid this trial may reach an early end. An early and unfavourable conclusion. Why do I always seem to be so up against it? Right, so I'm not kind of discrepanting anything about their, like... So, let me press this. Right? Let me see what they say about this. No time to change after work, you say. Are you also a member of the police, Mrs. Beat? Mrs. Beat? Oh no, sadly not. It is my job. It's a job for strapping young men only. Women and children and the elderly can't even apply. Well, I think you can probably see why children and the elderly can't do the job, can't you? I think Rowley looks ever so handsome in his uniform. Let's just shoot down to the ground, isn't it, darling?
I just finished my beat. Pat and I were heading back to the station. Oh, I was actually planning on getting changed there.
Is he just talking in his sleep? This is creepy. Oh no, Rolly, I much prefer you in uniform. Ah, she likes a man in uniform. Sometimes I don't recognize you when I see you in your plain clothes. Oh dear, that doesn't seem healthy.
Kindly adhere to the point. You were going for a meal after you had finished your beat for the day, correct? That's right, sir. Yes. Although I was fit to drop. To be honest, after spending the whole day on my feet. That policing is my life, sir. As long as I'm a proud owner of this, I serve my city and my queen to the end.
What's that now?
My warrant card, sir. Proof that I'm a London copper. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it. As a reminder to all his policemen of our sworn duty. To patrol the streets of London, town, and uphold the peace of the common man. Sir, and for such noble cause, I cover 20 miles every single day. Without fail and without grumble. Because I know that the plodding of my boots is all London is needed to hear and feel safe and secure.
So, fighting crime doesn't appear to come into it then.
So, just on that one particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. B puts up with a lot being married to a bobby like me. I want to show my dear wife how much I care. Oh, Pat.
Oh, really? A charming couple. If a little over the top, perhaps.
And then, can they describe what happened next?
Alright, so... Oh, okay. Mr. Lawyer, sir, can I ask you something? Oh, yeah, of course. What is it? Well, you keep asking us all these questions about everything we've told you, so... it seems like you don't believe our testimony. Is that right? Is it? Well, out with it? What? No. It's really not that at all. My husband's a policeman, remember? And I know what I saw. I remember every last detail. Everything. Like, oh, I know. What about the books the man dropped? I could tell you the names of every single one. Every single one. And you dare to question how reliable my testimony is? No, it will not do at all. That Japanese lawyer has no idea what I'm capable of. Even if I decide to forgive him for insulting us, I don't think for a minute that Rolly will. I really didn't mean to cause offense. Please, put your husband's fist down.
Perhaps you would like the opportunity to supplement your testimony, Miss Beat. Mrs. Beat. Might that appease you?
Oh, thank you, my lord. That would settle things nicely. Wouldn't it, darling? There we go. we're gonna discrepancy. Here's the thing. You represent the photos or the receipt? One of them's wrong.
Objection.
That was a good wild guess. So, you're saying that there were 4 books? That's right, I remember all of them. With a picture of Monsieur somebody, what's it yearnings, a meal for someone, and the thin gummies something. I'm sorry, Mrs. B. But there's a fundamental flaw in that statement of yours. Oh no! What? What flaw? Simply, at the scene of the crime, there were only 3 books, not 4. I know exactly what's coming. He's going to tell us there is 4. What? Have a good look at this photograph print of the scene of the crime. As you can clearly see, there are only 3 books. But, no, that can't be. I saw them. I know what it is. You can't fool me. Sorry? It's that big old lump of a dead body. The lady's so large, her corpse is blocking the view of a 4th book, that's all. Let's at least try to remember this poor woman isn't dead. Even if we're insulting her size. No, I'm sorry, Mrs. B. But Mr. Natsume could not possibly have dropped 4 books, as you described. Why not?
Fascinating. From your assured tone, something you can readily substantiate with evidence, I presume.
Ah, evidence.
Counsel, you will provide evidence to substantiate your claim or withdraw it. What proof do you have that the accused did not drop 4 books?
Take that!
The receipt, he only bought 3. The evidence is right here, in the form of this bookshop receipt.
From your books.
Yes, the receipt details Mr. Natsume's purchases that day. But, as you can see, only 3 books are listed. No! Therefore, Mr. Natsume would only have dropped 3 books at the scene of the crime. Which means that your powers of observation, madam, cannot be relied on. So it cannot be denied that though you say it was the defendant you saw, you could very well be mistaken. Oh no, oh no, 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 no!
Objection!
Okay, tell me there's 4. Tell me there was 4 at the scene of the crime. Go on, do it. Hold me, Vanda.
It's plainly evident that it is your powers of deduction that cannot be relied on, my learned.
What?
What cannot be denied is that these 2 witnesses saw the accused running from the scene. A fact that you know very well, you have no hope of disproving. So, you've striven to avert attention from that by dint of some inconsequential discrepancies?
Ah, but we can prove it. Here's the thing. right? We can prove this. Van Zykes is saying that he still ran from the scene. Yes, he probably could still have ran from the scene. But now everything adds up. He ran away from the old man that tripped at your books, ran across, ran past Streetworks, down by a road, back to back to where he's like renting out. Yes, he was running from the scene. But it was a completely different person.
Wouldn't that be fair?
Sees right through me.
Your plan has somewhat recoiled against you.
What are you talking about?
It's quite simple. Oh,
The voice gave out.
it's quite simple. Let me explain with a toast. To the policeman's wife and her entirely accurate testimony in every respect.
Oh,
You see, the matter is not up for debate. At the scene on Briar Road, a total of 4 books were most definitely.
Objection!
but what about the photographic print? It only shows 3 books.
Quite right. Only 3 can be seen in that print.
That print? You mean Sir?
Allow me to present another. One that shows the victim's hand.
You could have presented that earlier. Right, you're saving us a lot of work. What happened to that one? Yeah, but here's the thing, right? That one didn't, come from the bookshop. That one came out of the burning apartment, you see. It's the 4th book.
As you will observe, the 4th book is hiding in view.
Sorry, it's getting late.
The 4th book hidden from view in the original print by the victim's torso.
No. No!
Order! Order!
There. There, you see? Look at that. Look at that. Yes. It's just like I said, isn't it, my darling? Yes, Patricia's always right, sir.
Let us study the receipt for the books purchased by the accused on that day in question. Mrs. Beat, the titles, once again, if you please.
Oh yes, of course. The picture of Monsieur's somebody or other.
The picture of Monsieur Lecroc.
What's it, yearnings?
Huntingbury Yearning.
A meal for someone.
A meal for Gaboria, in fact. As the court has just heard, the witness remembers the book titles flawlessly. Save for a few minor. Mrs. Beat's powers of recollection can only be described as exceptional.
Did you hear that, Rhoda? The gentleman paid me a compliment. Yes, sir, flawless. Precious, flawless. But there were only 3 books on the receipt, and Mrs. Beat mentions 4.
There's nothing surprising about that. Clearly the fourth book shown in the photographic print. I'm sorry, Council, but does that not seem odd? Why should the fourth book be omitted from the receipt? It's not odd at all, my lord. As the photograph clearly shows, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutch. In other words, it belonged to the victim.
The victim was holding her own book. I wonder what became of that fourth book.
Obviously, it wasn't overlooked by the investigating officers of Scotland Yard. I have it here as evidence. You will submit that and the aforementioned photographic print to the court, please, Counsel. My pleasure, Lord.
We got crime scene in 4-2. Fourth book has been entered in. Right, so we're going to investigate that fourth book from a court record.
The prosecution rests. I have nothing further to.
What?
You seem surprised, my learned friend. But your resistance until now has been in vain. Entertaining, yes, but futile. The spurious longer route to the accused lodgings that you tried to establish in your summation examination, and the attempted discrediting of the witness's powers of recollection in your cross-examination.
Futile? I went right into this, didn't I? You see, everything we said is true. Isn't that right, my darling?
Yes, Pat. Marry me, Pat. So, perhaps the ladies and gentlemen of the jury would like to reconsider their position. Should the court waste any more time on this Nipponese travesty? Or is the decision you have to make all too apparent? You have heard all of the witnesses and seen all of the evidence. This trial has run its course.
Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid we are in a terribly precarious position. I know, but if I fight back in the wrong way now, it could very well make matters worse. Think, Brian is good. Think. What do you do now? I raise an objection.
Objection!
I'm not done yet.
No, my learned friend, it's over. That last cross-examination was your final chance to establish credible evidence. You failed. The die has been cast. There is no more room for them.
Well, it might be over as far as you're concerned, but... I can't think of what to say. If I may, Lord Van Zykes, it seems somewhat boorish to close down the debate at this point.
Your insignificant little Eastern Isle must be a lawless hole indeed. For a lowly judicial assistant to have the audacity to intervene at a moment like...
Oh. I am, to my shame, really very inexperienced lawyer. So, you'll have to forgive me, but I consider my assistant's advice essential and her opinions invaluable. Mr. Hodo.
One of this land's great guiding principles is tolerance. So the court will hear you, madam.
Go ahead, Miss Susan. Please.
Very well. Pray, what insight can you give us? What have we all overlooked in this matter that you see fit to pursue further?
Well, the court's been presented with new evidence, but only after the last cross-examination finished.
I see. And you believe this new evidence warrants further examination, do you?
Mr. Naruto, what do you think? It's just possible that this new evidence might be the decisive proof that we've been waiting for. Judge is sure to ask the members of the jury to announce their leanings in a moment. And of course, he's sure to ask you to explain what the crucial piece of evidence is and why. So, we must take this opportunity to examine this newly presented evidence as thoroughly as possible. Yes, I understand. Thank you, Miss Susan. This is it. Suzuto's managed to win us at least one chance here. I can't let it go to waste. The defense wishes to present evidence, my lord. He's not happy. He's not happy at all.
The defense may present one further piece of evidence. Evidence that apparently offers a profound insight into the case and has hitherto been overlooked.
Oh, look at this. The book has been badly burned. You're right. You'd never be able to read it in this state, especially not the latter pages. What a terrible waste. Judging from the scorched edges of the paper, I think the damage must have occurred very recently. A book recently damaged by fire. Why does that raise a red flag to me? I think it's quite obvious though, isn't it?
Take that!
The evidence in question is what we can see from the newly presented photographic print of the crime scene. The fourth book, found in the victim's hand.
Objection!
We have already discussed the fourth book at length. Other than it being in the victim's grasp at the time of the incident, no significance has been attached to it. Pursuing the matter further would be a flagrant waste of the court's time, as you well know. Yes, I'm afraid, Counsel, I must concur with the prosecution on this matter. When I offered you this opportunity, you led the court to believe you had the evidence in question contained a hitherto undiscovered clue. So I must insist that you elaborate, Counsel. You will identify this clue at once. Do I make myself clear?
Oh, yes, my lord. It's, Mr. Naruto. I believe the prosecution is trying to avoid a thorough examination of this evidence, which means you may well be on the right track. Yeah, I think you're right.
So, Counsel, precisely where is this vital clue to the case which this fourth book conceals?
Got it!
Got it. I would ask the court to observe the back of the book in question.
Back? What good gracious. It's been burnt to a crisp.
So we have to ask ourselves, why is the victim clutching what is clearly an unreadable book? This is undeniably an extremely unnatural thing for her to have been doing.
Objection!
Don't raise objections at me.
Unnatural, you say? And what of it, beneath friend? Were I to concede the point, it bears no relation to the case. There is nothing. So, should you wish to assert that this fire damage is some veiled clue as to what happened that day? Pray, do enlighten us all. What truth does this God book hide?
A charred book. There is just one possibility here. I can't quite bring myself to rule out. It's an outside chance, certainly, but worth a try. Alright. I'll explain my theory.
Don't keep us waiting any longer, Counsel. Explain this theory of yours. What are you suggesting that you can ascertain from the fire damage of this sorry tome?
Its owner. My lord, the burn on the back of this book reveals a startling truth. About the book's owner.
I beg your pardon.
But we already know who the book belongs to. The victim was gripping it in her hand, but she fell to the floor after all. It's obviously hers. Absolutely not. The question of how this book came to be in the victim's hand is yet to be answered. However, as to the questions of who the book really belongs to and where it originated, the defense has very credible answers.
Goodness gracious, how could you possibly? Very well. I'll play along with this futile attempt to delay your inevitable demise. But do remember, members of this jury may well burn you if your little gamble goes awry. Counsel, the defense's response here is very likely to influence the final outcome of this trial. So tell the court, who do you claim is the owner of this burnt book?
Take that!
The answer is that book belongs to a couple who own the house where the defendant has his lodging. A certain Mr. and Mrs. Garadeeb.
The landlords.
Wrong voice.
The landlords.
And whether this is some extraordinary coincidence or some kind of fate at work, I don't know. But of all the people in London, one of the 6 chosen for the jury duty in this courtroom today is none other than Mrs. Garadeeb herself. Oh my goodness! Me? I think it must be mistaken, sir. I am not Mr. Garadeeb's wife. I am his maid. Things would be so much easier if you just dropped the pretense. Alright then. How about a simple question for you? Have you seen this book before, Mr. Garadeeb's house? I would never presume to know all the books he keeps, sir.
Objection!
This is outlandish behavior. This woman is the accused's landlady, you say. You implicate this hardworking member of the public. You besmirch her without a shred of evidence. Your actions are unforgivable.
Objection!
No. This is not mere conjecture. The defense happens to know. On the day in question, at almost exactly the same time as the victim was stabbed on the pavement below, another incident was taking place in the room on the top floor, Mr. and Mrs. Garadieb's house.
Good Lord, what sort of incident, counsel?
A fire, my lord. Yes.
Right to say it was. Having a blink of an eye, you know. Whole place filled with smoke. I want to say a bally thing. It didn't take long for the fire to spread, of course, and bally furniture started going up as well. Worst of it, I lost my favorite book called The Lion's Pride. The Lion's Pride. By Jove, it's the very same title and subject of this debate.
Oh dear me.
Objection!
This is risible. All you've told the court is the book by the same name was involved in a fire. In which case, it would be reasonable to assume that it was burnt to ashes. And entirely unreasonable to infer that it magically removed itself to the scene of the crime.
Perhaps it would make more sense if I told you that the cause of the fire was a marital discord. Without going into details, it appears that Miss Garadieb was considerably enraged. Apparently, she continued to attack Mr. Garadieb even amid the flames. Oh, how awful! I can't even imagine being so horrid to the one you love, can you, Rolly?
Absolutely not, sir. My petition would raise a finger at me, sir. But all my favourite old novels in that case. As soon as a fire got hold of him, that was it. Whoosh. Up in smoke. And the wife started hurling things at me. There I was, back against the window, under every enemy fire, incendiary books, incoming, 10 to the dozen. The man had his back against the window and he had burning books thrown at him. Goodness gracious, are you suggesting that the book was thrown through a window and landed coincidentally at the scene of the crime?
Objection!
No, a thorough investigation of the surrounding area was conducted the very evening of the incident. There's no report of the Garadieb's window pane being broken.
That's quite true. We also saw no sign of broken glass when we visited the Garadieb household. But it was not conceivable that the window was open at the time. And
Not even remotely. Let us not forget the season and chilling weather that accompanies it. No Londoner would ever leave their window open in the middle of winter.
yeah, but there was a fire going on.
Does the defense postulate this scenario in all seriousness, counsel? You earnestly claim this book found at the scene of the crime was a flaming projectile thrown by Mr. Garadieb's wife.
I believe it's a possibility, my lord.
quite enough.
Well, here's the thing. It's now midnight. As very tense as this trial is getting, unfortunately, we're going to have to save our game. And unfortunately, walkway this week. That isn't to say that we didn't have fun with it. We've definitely had emotional turmoil, marital discord, relationship problems, all shown to us today, shown that our law is definitely flawed. But there's always a way. There's always a way to push forward. There's always a way to move forward, even in times where you may not find the brightest light. And that's what we need to do. We need to push forward. Continue to push forward. We don't? And what happens? You're stuck at a point that you can't move. And that's not good for anyone. If we continue to push, we continue to make progress. Even in the darkest times, continue to push forward. You'll thank yourself later. Don't stay in that dark place. Keep being you. Keep pushing forward. And with that, time to end. So, given the rest of our day now, I wish you a wonderful evening. I hope you can get well rested. I hope you can have a good rest of the day that you have. In the hopes that you can push forward. Do what you want. Accomplish your dreams. If you can do that, you're all set. You'll do great. I have faith in you. Make sure you push forward. I'm behind you every step of the way. Never stop doing what you're doing. And with that, there we end. Thank you so much.